Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and no vlog today. Thursdays have become my weekly bookish vlog days. However, I'm still filming the current vlog as it's going to be a come to work with me vlog, and I'm off to Oxford later as I'm filming this to go and do my second event of the year and indeed second event of the week. And in that vlog you're going to get to come to my part-time day job, hear all about that, hear about the curator role that I have at Story House, and then come to some events that I'm hosting. Well, one that I've hosted with Sarah Waters, and then one I'm hosting tonight as I'm filming this in Oxford with Lottie Hazel. So I hope you're going to enjoy that. But yeah, it's going to be quite one to edit. So next Thursday is when that'll be. Anyway, to the business in hand, as I'm going to be chatting to you about two 5-star reads, my first 5-star reads of the year. And what I want to do this year is document those a little bit better and give myself the challenge to give you 5 reasons why they are 5-star reads. It's all about the fives, it's 2025. And also sort of how those books show where I guess my tastes are with reading and how that reflects on some of my reading in the past and directions that I might want to go in the future. Hopefully it'll all make sense and I haven't overcomplicated myself with this. We'll see. So I'm going to tell you about these two books in order that I read them, and the first book and my first 5-star book of the year was actually my first read of the year, which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, means that I'm going to have a belter of a reading year in 2025. And I have to say January has been quite a banger, so yeah, signs are good, signs are good. The first book is Robbie Arno's Dusk. Now, in some ways, this shouldn't be a surprise to me that it was a 5-star book, and one of the reasons that I picked it as my first book of the year is the fact that I love Robbie Arno. I have read all of his books, and every single one I have found absolutely phenomenal. I first read Flames, I can't remember what year that came out, but it honestly just like, wow was the response. It was quite different to what I'd read before, so full of nature but also so full of folklore and all those things. And Dusk, his latest, is a novel sort of, well, there isn't a date in which it's set, but for me it feels like 100 at least years ago, probably more actually, as we'll come to with one of the things that I really loved about it, and that was its kind of odd eerie setting. But we are with twin siblings, and that was an accidental pick for my Savage reading prompt for January, which is to read a book with twins as main character. I knew that it was siblings, I didn't realise it was twins, so that was very fortuitous too. The signs, like I said, are very good for 2025. I don't want to jinx it though. And yeah, so we meet these twins and they are aware that there is a puma who is killing shepherds called Dusk, and a bounty has been put on Dusk's head. And these twins are living quite a hand-to-mouth life, and so they decide that they will, you know, try and capture Dusk, and we follow their journey through, as I said, this quite eerie version of Tasmania, I think it is, where the land is filled with these huge sort of giant, it almost feels like foresty and mountainous, but it's actually prehistoric bones. So it does give this book this real eeriness, which is one of the 5 things that I really loved about it. But I'm not going to say that's my number one, because my number one is Robbie Arno's writing. I love how his writing is so evocative and you feel completely and utterly lost in the best of ways in his world. The second thing I really love is that the characters in this book sort of, I'm not going to say they're duplicitous, even though I now sort of have put that out there, but I love how sort of flawed they are, and how as we get to know the twins, we get to see very different sides of them, a caring side, quite not an aggressive side, but a very defensive, and you know, these are two people who are really having to fend for themselves, and there's this bond between them, but also the cracks that show and how they both perceive each other, but also the perceptions of them from other people when they find out about the twins' parents. I should just say as well, when I started reading this book, I thought the twins were going to be in like their teens. They're not. They're very much in their 30s, but we follow them, and yeah, this sort of the nature of their characters and how that sometimes interweaves with the nature of the landscape, I thought was absolutely brilliantly done. So that was the second thing I love. So the first thing, the writing, which is like one of the most important things. Second thing, the characters, both the main twins, but also the characters they meet. And I don't want to give any spoilers away because they're like I said, some of the characters shift quite a bit. I love that this book really looks at outsiders, and that is something that this book has in common with the next one, as well as being brilliantly written. I really find the subject of outsiders really fascinating, and I don't just mean in the case of the twins as they sort of go on this, and it is an adventure novel in a lot of ways, which is nothing that I really loved, but the way that they kind of perceived when they come into new towns or when they meet with new people, and they're seen as quite other, but so is Dusk. And I find that the sort of mirroring of that I thought was really brilliant. But I do always find this outsider incomer, I guess, relationship really interesting. And it's also, I think, in a way, Robbie Arno writing about how people want to tame what they don't understand, or how people will villainize the things that they don't understand. And you can use that as, I guess, an allegory for a lot of what's going on in the world right now in all sorts of ways. And I do think with Robbie Arno, whatever he writes does have some reflection on what's going on now. So that was what I loved about it. As I said, fourth thing, it's a real adventure. This has got a real country and western vibe to it. And I don't think in my head I like country and westerns, and then I read them and I absolutely blinking love them. So as I said, like looking in terms of what I like as a reader and what I want to do going forward, I need to be reading a lot more books with that sort of country and western vibe. The last one that I really loved, just for a bit of reference, was These Hills Are, is it Made of Gold or Filled with Gold, by C. Pam Zhang. I thought that was incredible. This had some of those feelings to me. Again, I guess that book's siblings, and I do really like books about siblings. So the sense of adventure in here I thought was brilliant. And then the fifth thing that I love about this, and this is going to be the hardest bit to talk about, but, well, no, it's not actually, because the fifth thing that I love, and I think the thing that I think is most incredible about this book, is the way it builds the tension, it builds the atmosphere, it takes you along. This book made me cry twice towards the end. One with like this real guttural emotion about one of the characters, again, no spoilers, and then at the end, this sort of cry of joy and how can I describe it again without giving it away? Surprise and just emotion and yeah, from what happens at the very end of this book. I think it's one of the best endings I've ever read. What makes it all the more powerful is, as I said, that atmosphere and that tension moving on. Not only do you have this eerie, creepy sort of place, you have all these characters that you can't quite suss out and you're sort of second guessing, but then as you meet kind of, as Dusk appears and becomes more of a character to the fore, there's this real attachment that you get to them, and you're also working them out. And all of this all together is just this absolutely fantastic concoction of, I mean, it's quite a quiet in a lot of ways book, but it really has this propulsion, and that is mainly to do with, like I said, that concoction of the characters, what's going on, what this book is saying, the way it's making you second guess certain things. And yeah, I loved all of that. But to come to that point, I just thought it was fantastic. And if you've read it, please leave comments in below, but like leave a little bit of jargon so that it doesn't spoil it for anyone, because I do want to talk about the ending of this book to as many people as they can. I also know this will be very frustrating for me to be talking about this book so early, because whilst it's been out in Australia since October, maybe even November, and this is the Australian edition, it's not actually out in the UK or the US until August. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it's one to definitely be pre-ordering, because pre-orders matter, especially actually I would say in America and the UK, because I don't think Robbie Arno is as celebrated here or over in the US and Canada as much as he is in Australia, and I think that's a real shame, because he is just utterly phenomenal, and I will never forget this book. I think it could possibly be my favourite Arno. I mean, it's a tie with Flames at the moment. I need a little bit more space from it, but yeah, it's just brilliantly written. The characters are fascinating. What he's doing and saying with this book is brilliant as you go on this adventure. I feel like I lost count of what my 5 things were, but I definitely did have 5. I'm pretty sure I had 5. I should just say it's phenomenal, really. Why am I giving myself the task of 5 reasons why I thought it was amazing? It is. But I guess if I just sat here and said, this is phenomenal, you should all read it, that would make a very short video and not really give you much insight. But I totally was with the twins on their journey. I had a really fascinating relationship as a reader with Dusk. I loved the mirroring within it. I loved the sense of place and this eerie weirdness about it. I love the adventure vibe and the country and western vibe. And yeah, I would definitely like to head to more country and westerny books going forward. So if you've got any recommendations of ones that I might love, let me know in the comments down below. I feel like Lonesome Dove is having a real moment on Booktube at the moment. So my second 5-star book of the year, and there is a book that I read between these two that is on the cusp of a 4.5 into a 5. I don't really like giving book star ratings, but that one could be one that I talk about more as it may grow on me. And I have read, I think, a definite 5-star book, but I only finished it a few days ago, so I still just wanted that percolate a little bit. But my second definite 5-star book of the year is A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland. I know, 2 books by men. That's quite unusual for me because I genuinely prefer books written by women, but what can I say? 2025 is full of surprises so far. This, I think, is coming out in March here in the UK, and it is a story of 2 men, B and M, and they are living in a rural Welsh town in the 80s, and they meet at a pub. There's some sort of tension between them, and we follow on from there. A Room Above a Shop is very important to it. So it's a rural queer tale, which is something I have been wanting to read for ages, ever since I read Tom Cruise A New Life, where the main characters in that go and stay with this queer couple in the Peak District in Derbyshire, which is where I'm from. So I think that also had like a chime with me. I wanted more of it, more please. But I don't think we hear about rural queer stories that much. Certainly not sort of, I mean, I hate saying that the 1980s is a historical period because it's the decade I was born in, but it is over 30 years ago, so it is technically history. And also this is set at a very important point in, well, important and devastating point in queer history and the history of the world, to be fair. So anyway, the 5 things that I loved about this, well, firstly, the writing, and this is the sort of book that I love because it's vignettes, so we get quite punchy pockets of prose. Oh, loving all the P's there. But we get these punchy pockets of prose, and how Anthony Shapland does this, I don't know, because it's so concise, but it's so rich, and it's so clear, but yet so full. And so through these, I can't remember what I said, powerful pockets of prose, you get so much. So I felt like I knew the village, I guess it is more of a village than a town that they lived in. I felt I got to know them really well. I loved how through these vignettes, you just got these real emotional punches, and this book does get incredibly emotional. So I thought the writing was utterly phenomenal. I think the second thing that I really loved about this book is like I said, the rural nature, and the fact that I don't feel that I've read that many books about rural queer lives, be it actually even contemporary, let alone, as we've talked about, the history of the 80s, which makes me feel very old. So that I really, really love the setting as well. The fact that sort of nature's in the background when they first have their sort of, I guess, first date. It's on this sort of rocky outcrop on a mountain, and there's this real, just beauty to that, and there's a rawness to it. And actually, that is the third thing I love. This is an incredibly raw book. It's incredibly sexy with its rawness, or rawly sexy. That sounds a bit wrong. It's the emotion is so brilliantly done, because these are 2 men who are having to have a very secret life, especially as, you know, the subject of HIV and AIDS, which became such a terrifying conversation at that point as the epidemic happened. But they're living these secret, but they're also kind of keeping secrets from themselves and each other emotionally. Like there's a restraint around them all the time. But at the same time, as the reader, you're getting the rawness of that internal emotion, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. So that's the writing, the raw setting, the rawness. The 4th thing that I loved about this was that it really, I guess, defied my expectation in terms of, that's not fair actually, I don't think, that's not fair on me, I'm saying. It defies stereotypes, that's what I like. These are 2 men with very complex family scenarios that you wouldn't stereotypically say were gay men. And I'm not saying anything against men who are stereotypically, or gay men who are stereotypically gay, but I think the fact that this added that layer, and the fact that as I don't want to spoil anything, but as they get closer and the situation they find themselves in together is being watched by other people because of the shop element, once you've read it, you'll know what I mean. The way it looks at suspicion, and the way they look at, there's almost like this microscopic view of themselves, trying not to appear to be in a relationship, but also just trying not to even appear the slightest bit queer. I found the way that was done was really, really brilliant. And then the fifth thing that I loved about this book, again, is sort of the ending, and I don't want to spoil it, so it's really, really, I shouldn't give myself these 5 bullet points, should I? Bullet points, it's not a presentation, it's just a video, we're just having a chat. But yeah, I found the ending so, I cried. Both of these books have made me cry. In fact, that's something that I hadn't realised. Both these books made me cry, and they're 5-star reads. So clearly, I really, really love a book that makes me emote, and this really, really made me emote. Yeah, there were certain scenes in here as it went on, just that were just pure, well, as I've mentioned, the rawness, but pure emotion, but also there was just some beautiful little moments. And all I'm going to say, for any of you who've not read it yet, and when you read it, is the watches. That's all I need to say, the wristwatches. And I just thought the way Anthony Shapland will use these small, beautiful moments that are so powerful and sort of bloom the emotions in your brain as a reader were absolutely fantastic. So this has reminded me how much I love queer fiction when it's done well. I know I wang on that queer fiction can often be very, very sad, and this is quite a sad, well, a very sad novel. I forgave it that, which sounds like another thing to say. I think sometimes I get really fed up of not reading about queer joy, but what I loved about this is, whilst there is a lot of sadness, there is so much joy and love and passion and all those good things in here that for me, yeah, that made it an incredible, incredible read. So yeah, I need to find more books like this. Also, just that I love a vignette book. I need to read more of those. And I also like a book that's got quite a sexy edge to it, and this definitely had that. So there we are. Those are my first 2 5-star reads of the year. I hope you enjoyed this. Did you like the 5-point format? Maybe it's something that'll bin off if you didn't. But otherwise, I just go on too many tangents, and then the video goes on forever. I thought this was going to be 10 minutes. It's nearly 20, and I've got to go and get a train. So yeah, I urge you to read both of these. Pre-orders are super duper duper important. So if you haven't got to them yet and you fancy them from this, please do pre-order, because it means that, you know, people feel they'll stock more, basically, because they feel there's a real desire for them. I also love that this was Welsh, and I do love Wales, so I've got to say that. This also, I love Australia, having never been, but it is my aim one day to get there. I'd love to interview Robbie Arno in Australia, imagine that. Anyway, that's me putting out an affirmation there. Yeah, enough of me chuntering on. These 2 books, absolutely fantastic. Would you like, well, you might not have any choice, but would you like more? Sorry. Asking you a question that I don't really need an answer to. It's rhetorical, really, but no, I always like your feedback. Would you like more 5-star read videos? How often would you like them? Maybe should I bunch them in 5s? Because this is the year that's all seems to be about the 5s for me. Let me know that. And I will see you in another video. I think on Sunday I'm going to do my January book haul. Then, like I said, next week you'll get my Come to Work With Me vlog. And the Sunday after that, wrap-ups return, because as I've said, I've had a really corking January reading so far. I mean, we've still got a day to go. It feels like January is about a year long, particularly this year, but I have enjoyed having it feeling long and having loads of great books to read as I've gone along. I've said long too many times now. But yeah, plug in these again. Do give them a read. They are absolutely fantastic. And I would love to know if you've had a 5-star read so far this year, or what your best read of the year so far has been. Anything else you'd like to see on the channel, let me know. And yeah, I will see you in another video. Oh, I should mention, actually, I always forget, that subscribe if you'd like, that would be lovely. Also, my Instagram, my Blue Sky, my Patreon, wishlist, all those things are linked down below. And I hope you're reading something fabulous. Let me know your favourite read of the year so far, and I will see you in another video very, very soon. Bye.